The galaxy had long been at war. There had been fighting between the different species, and many feared that peace would never come. After many years of conflict, the leaders of the galaxy finally decided to hold peace talks. The Galaxy Council, a group of the most powerful and respected leaders, would bring everyone together to discuss a solution. The humans, a young species, were invited to the talks. Though they were not seen as important players, many believed that the humans, with their short history and smaller population compared to other races, were not ready for such a big role. Still, they had something that made them different, something that the other species didn't always understand. They had hope. They believed that no matter how difficult the task, peace was always possible. David, a young human diplomat, had worked hard to prepare for these peace talks. He was known for his ability to stay calm under pressure and his talent for seeing things from others' perspectives. He had spent weeks with his team, crafting the perfect arguments and proposals for the talks. He knew this was a chance to show the galaxy that humans could bring real change. When the peace talks began, David and the human delegation walked into the massive council chamber. The room was filled with representatives from many different species, some tall and elegant, others with strange features and powerful auras. The humans stood in the back, feeling out of place. Despite their accomplishments, many of the other species saw them as newcomers, too young and inexperienced to be trusted with such important matters. The council members, seated high above, looked down at the humans with a mix of curiosity and doubt. They were aware of humanity's achievements, but still viewed them as a small and unproven species in the grand scheme of things. As the talk started, David noticed the subtle looks of disinterest from the council members. They seemed more focused on their own political games than on the serious matters at hand. One of the alien leaders, a tall, elegant being from the Zarnok species, spoke first. His voice was calm, but firm. "The humans may have had some small successes," he said, "but we cannot allow them to dictate the terms of peace. We must proceed with caution." David felt his heart race. It was clear the council did not believe humans were capable of leading this peace process. But David wasn't ready to give up just yet. He stood up, his voice steady. "With all due respect," he said, "we believe that peace is not just about power or influence. It is about understanding one another and finding common ground." The room grew quiet. David could see some of the council members shifting in their seats. The Zarnok leader gave him a sharp look. "You speak of understanding," he said coldly, "but what experience do humans have with peace? You have only been at war for centuries, and now you believe you can change the galaxy's course?" David paused for a moment, gathering his thoughts. "We may be young," he said quietly, "but that is why we have the ability to see things differently. We have no history of distrust among our people, and that is the foundation of real peace." The other council members exchanged glances, some looking doubtful, others thoughtful. But David could see that their minds were already made up. They were not willing to take risks on the humans, no matter how much hope they had to offer. Without warning, the Zarnok leader called for a vote. "It is clear that humanity is not ready for such a role," he said. "We will move forward without them. They will be given no say in this matter." David's heart sank as he heard the voices of the council agreeing with the decision. He had tried his best, but in the end, the humans were dismissed. The peace talks continued without them, and David could see that the council was already making compromises that could lead to more problems down the road. As the meeting ended, David and the human delegation were asked to leave. They walked out of the chamber, their heads held high, but deep down, David knew that this was not the end. The galaxy had made a mistake. Humans had something the others didn't, an ability to unite and bring peace. But for now, the galaxy wasn't ready to listen. They had underestimated the humans. David turned to Commander Sarah, the leader of the human delegation. "We can't give up," he said quietly. "We have to show them that humanity can do more than they think, Commander." Sarah nodded, her expression serious. "I agree. We'll show them that humanity's strength isn't in its size or age. It's in its heart." After the council's decision to exclude humans from the peace talks, David felt a mix of anger and frustration. It wasn't just about the peace talks anymore, it was about respect. The humans had proven time and time again that they could stand on their own. But it seemed the galaxy was determined to ignore them. Back in the human command center, Commander Sarah and her team gathered to discuss their next move. The room was filled with the hum of computers and the low chatter of strategists. David stood by the window, staring out at the stars. He had a plan, but it wasn't going to be easy. He knew that humanity couldn't simply walk away from this. It was a matter of pride, but also of survival, Commander David said. Turning to face Sarah, the Council's decision is a huge mistake. We can't just sit back and watch them make peace the wrong way. We need to act now. Sarah looked at him, her face serious. What do you have in mind? David took a deep breath. Hey. We need to show the galaxy what they've been ignoring. We don't need their permission to be a part of this galaxy. We have our own strengths, technological advances, leadership, and determination. We'll show them that peace isn't just about making deals. It's about understanding what really matters. Room grew silent as Sarah and the others processed David's words. It was clear that his plan wasn't going to be easy, but there was something about the way he spoke something that made everyone believe in it. Finally, Sarah nodded. I agree. They won't take us seriously, we'll make them.
What?
Do it the human way with honor and intelligence, not force. We're not here to fight a war. We're here to prove a point. The team worked through the night, developing a bold strategy. The plan wasn't about showing off their military power, but demonstrating the unique strengths that humans brought to the table. They would put their technology, their ability to adapt, and their resourcefulness on full display. It wasn't just about winning, it was about showing that humanity had something no other species could replicate. The human fleet was powerful, but it wasn't the size of the fleet that mattered. It was how they used it. The plan involved a series of demonstrations, not of firepower, but of humanity's ability to think outside the box. They would use their ships in ways the galaxy hadn't seen before, fast, unpredictable, and precise. Commander Sarah stood at the head of the table, her gaze intense. We need to move quickly. The longer we wait, the more the Council will think they've won. Let's show them that humanity won't be ignored. David, who had been at the heart of the strategy meetings, felt the weight of their decision. This was no longer just about diplomacy. It was about making a statement that would resonate across the galaxy. Humanity had been underestimated for far too long, and now it was time for the galaxy to see them for what they truly were. The next morning, the human fleet began its journey to the edge of the galaxy. They would arrive in the area where the peace talks had been taking place. It was a symbolic move, as it was both the heart of the negotiations and a place where the humans had been dismissed. As they neared the location, the human ships began to perform maneuvers, moving at incredible speeds, changing course in ways that left the other ships watching in awe. They weren't just fast, they were precise, their every move calculated to show that they could act with purpose. Even in the midst of chaos, back at the council chambers, the alien leaders had no idea what was coming. They had heard rumors about the human fleet moving towards the site, but they dismissed it as a petty show of defiance. They didn't realize that the humans had more up their sleeves than just speed. The first demonstration was a series of evasive maneuvers that left the nearby ships in complete confusion. The human ships, smaller and more agile than most, weaved in and out of formation, performing impossible turns and sudden stops, all while maintaining perfect coordination. The aliens, watching, were stunned. They had never seen anything like it before. Next, the humans deployed a series of drones, each programmed with complex algorithms that allowed them to simulate real-world battle scenarios. The drones moved in patterns that confused the other fleets, showing just how adaptable and quick-thinking humans could be. The drones weren't dangerous, but they were effective, proving that humanity had mastered the art of precision without needing to resort to violence. David watched the reactions of the galaxy's leaders as the demonstrations continued. The humans weren't just showing off, they were teaching the galaxy a lesson in adaptability and innovation. They had no need to prove their power with sheer force. Their strength was in their ability to think differently, to surprise and outwit their opponents. At that moment, David knew that the galaxy was beginning to understand. The peace talks hadn't ended. They had just taken a new direction. Humanity was no longer a side note in the galaxy's story. They had made their mark, and it was undeniable. Commander Sarah, standing beside David, looked out at the fleet. As it moved gracefully through the stars, "We've done it," she said quietly. "They'll never forget this." David nodded, his eyes fixed on the horizon. "This is only the beginning. We've shown them what we're capable of. Now it's up to the Council to decide if they're ready to listen." The human fleet continued its demonstration, weaving through the stars in perfect formation, moving faster than anyone thought possible. It wasn't about sheer force or firepower. It was about showing the galaxy just how far humanity had come. The humans had already proven that they could think strategically, and now it was time to show that their technology was not just advanced, but versatile and powerful. Captain James, the leader of the fleet, stood on the bridge of his ship, watching the scene unfold. He could see the alien ships in the distance, their lights blinking nervously. They had expected humanity to come with a show of weapons and warships, but instead, they were witnessing something completely different. The humans were demonstrating their abilities in ways the other species had never seen before. "We've got their attention," Captain James muttered to his crew, a slight smile tugging at the corner of his mouth. "Now, let's show them why they should never underestimate us again." The human ships began a series of complex movements, shifting from one position to another with incredible speed. They moved as if they were one, every ship working together in perfect harmony. The demonstration wasn't just about agility, it was about precision. Each ship displayed a unique skill. One could move at high speed and come to a complete stop. Instantly, another could dart in and out of formation without missing a beat. Together, it created a mesmerizing pattern that left the watching alien fleets in awe on the Council's viewing screens. The alien leaders began to murmur among themselves. The Zarnok leader, who had been the first to dismiss humanity, leaned forward, his eyes fixed on the display. He had seen military tactics before, but nothing like this. The humans weren't just showing off. They were proving that their technology was not only capable of handling the toughest situations, but that it could do so with a level of skill and finesse that most species didn't even dream of. "We didn't expect this," the Zarnok leader said, his voice laced with disbelief. "Their ships. They're maneuvering like nothing I've ever seen. How did they develop this so quickly?" Across the room, the Vora, a tall, thin species known for their military might, turned to the Zarnok leader. "Perhaps we've underestimated them," he said quietly, watching the human ships as they performed more intricate maneuvers. "Their approach is unorthodox, but effective." David, who had been watching from a nearby control room, felt a rush of pride. His plan was working. The galaxy was finally beginning to see what humanity was capable of. He looked to Commander Sarah, who stood beside him, her face serious but determined. "They didn't expect us to be this advanced," David said softly. "But now they have no choice but to watch." Sarah nodded. "We've shown them that we are not just another species in the galaxy. We're a force to be reckoned with. But we can't stop now. We need to keep the pressure on until they realize they have no choice but to listen." Meanwhile, Captain James on the bridge of the fleet was watching the reaction of the alien ships. Some were beginning to retreat, unsure of what to make of the humans. Others were moving in closer, trying to figure out the secret behind the human maneuvers. The humans, however, remained calm and composed, their ships dancing through the stars as though they were part of the very fabric of the galaxy. The display of skill didn't stop there. The humans launched a series of drones from their ships. Each drone programmed with a set of complex algorithms that allowed them to react to any situation. The drones flew in tight formations, creating patterns that were nearly impossible to follow. They darted and weaved through space, testing the limits of their speed and precision. The drones didn't shoot, didn't fight. They simply displayed the precision with which humanity operated. As the demonstration continued, the galaxy watched in silence. The once dismissed humans had turned the tables, proving that they had more to offer than anyone had ever imagined. The council members, who had initially been skeptical, were now glued to their screens, their faces showing a mix of awe and apprehension. "We need to reconsider," one of the council members said, his voice shaky. "If they can do this with just their ships, what else do they have in store?" "We need to be careful," the Zarnok leader responded. "These humans are not the weak species we thought they were. They are more resourceful than we imagined." As the demonstration came to a close, Captain James turned to his crew. "Well done, everyone," he said, his voice filled with pride. "We've made our point. Now we wait." David, still watching from the control room, felt a wave of satisfaction. They had done it. The humans had shown the galaxy that they weren't just another species to be brushed aside. They had the skills, the ingenuity, and the determination to make a real difference in the galaxy. Commander Sarah turned to David, a proud smile on her face. "We've done it. Now, it's time for the council to decide how they want to proceed." David nodded, his eyes focused on the stars ahead. "No matter what they decide, they'll never forget this. Humanity has made its mark." The human demonstration had shaken the galaxy. What had started as a quiet show of strength had now become a powerful statement. Across the stars, news of the humans' display spread like wildfire. The other species, who had long underestimated humanity, began to wonder if they had made a serious mistake in the Grand Council chamber. The leaders of the galaxy gathered once again, but this time the mood was different. The once dismissive expressions of the council members had turned into worried frowns. The alien representatives, who had ignored the humans just days before, now seemed to be deep in thought. The Zarnok leader, who had been the most vocal in dismissing the humans, stood at the center of the room, his expression tight. His mind was racing.
How could it go?
Humanity's fleet had performed moves that no one had seen before. Their ships, smaller and more agile than most, had danced through space in a way that no one had anticipated. And those drones had moved with an efficiency and precision that was unsettling. The humans weren't just playing a game, they were proving that they could outsmart anyone. "I told you," the Vora leader said quietly, turning to Mel. The Zarnok leader. "Humans were always more than we thought. They've shown us that their abilities go far beyond what we believed." The Zarnak leader did not respond at first. His eyes were focused on the holodisplay in front of him, showing the human fleet's maneuvers from every angle. He had been so certain that humanity was a small player, easily ignored. But now he could see that he was wrong. The humans had done something extraordinary. They had taken their weakness being new to the galaxy and turned it into a strength. Their fleet wasn't the biggest, but it was the smartest. And that was something the galaxy had never considered. "I underestimated them," the Zarnok leader finally admitted, his voice barely a whisper. The Vora leader nodded in agreement. We all did. The rest of the council, once so certain that they could move forward without the humans, now found themselves in a difficult position. The peace talks, which had seemed like a straightforward process, were now clouded by uncertainty. The humans, who had been written off as insignificant, were showing that they had a lot to offer. Commander Sarah, watching the council's meeting from a secure communication link, smiled. It wasn't a smile of victory, but one of quiet confidence. Humans had made their point. They had shown the galaxy that they couldn't be dismissed. But now, the real challenge began. David, standing beside her, watched the council members as they continued to argue among themselves. He could sense the shift in the room. The council was realizing that they couldn't move forward without acknowledging humanity's role. The peace talks had been thrown into chaos, but that was exactly what the humans had intended. It wasn't about winning a single negotiation. It was about showing that humanity had the power to change the course of the galaxy. "They're reconsidering," David said, his voice filled with hope. "They know they made a mistake by excluding us." Sarah nodded, but her face remained serious. "We've done more than just prove our worth. We've shaken the foundations of the council. Now we need to make sure they don't forget what we've shown them." Back in the council chamber, the debate was growing heated. The Zarnok leader had lost his usual composure. He had been so sure of his position, so sure that the humans didn't belong in the galaxy's power structure. But now he was being forced to face the reality. Humanity wasn't a threat, but they weren't a species to be ignored either. They were smart, adaptable, and capable of far more than anyone had anticipated. One of the council members, a representative from the Tolan species, stood up. "We cannot continue without acknowledging the humans," he said. "Their display was impressive, and we cannot pretend it didn't happen. The peace talks cannot go forward without their involvement." There was a brief silence in the room. The council members exchanged uneasy glances. For the first time, the idea that humanity might play a leading role in the galaxy's future didn't seem so far-fetched. The Zarnok leader took a deep breath and stepped forward. "Perhaps it is time to admit that we have made a mistake. Humanity is not just a side player. They are part of this galaxy now, and we must take them seriously." "Boo!" The council room buzzed with murmurs as the other leaders nodded, slowly coming to the same realization. Humanity had proven its strength, not through violence, but through intelligence and skill. The council had no choice but to reconsider its position. David and Sarah watched the proceedings unfold on their screens. Knowing that this was just the beginning, council was finally admitting its mistake. But that didn't mean the humans would get everything they wanted. The next step would be negotiating their place in the galaxy, proving that they deserved a seat at the table. But for now, the humans had accomplished what seemed impossible. They had made the galaxy take notice. The peace talks were no longer a simple process. They had become a challenge, a test of strength, intellect, and resolve. Commander Sarah leaned back in her chair, feeling the weight of the moment. "We've done it, David. We've shown them that humanity matters." David smiled, but his eyes were focused on the screen, watching the council members make their decision. "This is only the start. They may have admitted their mistake, but now we'll make sure they don't forget." The days following the council's realization were tense. The alien leaders, once so confident in their dismissal of humanity, now found themselves in an uncomfortable position. They had seen humanity's strength, and they knew that ignoring them any longer would be a mistake. But while the council members had come to this understanding, the real work was only just beginning. Humanity's representatives, led by Commanders Sarah and David, now faced the difficult task of securing their place in the galaxy. The council had agreed to allow the humans back into the peace talks, but they were not yet ready to fully accept them as equals. There were still those who feared humanity's potential, who saw them as unpredictable and dangerous. "Commander." Sarah stood with David, looking out the window of the human command center. The stars stretched endlessly in front of them, a reminder of how vast the galaxy was and how small humanity had once seemed in comparison. "We've come a long way," Sarah said quietly, her voice filled with determination, "but we still have a long way to go. Council may have accepted us back, but that doesn't mean they'll give us what we want." David nodded, his eyes fixed on the stars ahead. "We've shown them our strength. Now we need to show them our resolve. We need to make sure they know that we're here to stay." The next day, the council gathered once more to continue the peace talks. This time, however, the atmosphere was different. The alien leaders, though still wary, were more respectful. They knew that humanity could no longer be treated as a secondary player in the galaxy. They had proven their worth, and the council was forced to acknowledge that. The room was filled with representatives from the most powerful species in the galaxy. And yet it was the humans who commanded the most attention. David stood at the front, his voice steady as he addressed the council. We have come to these talks not just as negotiators, but as a species that deserves a place in the future of the galaxy. We have shown that we can contribute to peace, not through force, but through intelligence and cooperation. The council members listened in silence, many of them still unsure of what to make of humanity's newfound strength. But there was one thing they could not deny. Humanity had earned their place at the table. One of the council members, a representative from the Aquilus species, stood up. "You have shown us your capabilities," he said, his voice calm but firm. "We cannot ignore that. But there is still much to be decided. We must ask, what do you want from us, humans?" David glanced at Commander Sarah before responding. "What we want is simple," he said. "We want peace. But we want a peace that respects every species, including ours. We don't want to be treated as secondary players. We are not asking for special privileges, but we are asking for a seat at the table. We want to be recognized as equals, and we want our voice to matter in these discussions." The room was quiet for a moment. The council members exchanged glances. Unsure of how to proceed, humanity had made their position clear. The other species in the galaxy had always seen themselves as the powerhouses, the ones who dictated the rules. But now, humanity was asserting that they, too, had a right to be heard. Finally, the Zarnok leader stood up. His eyes, once full of doubt and disdain, were now filled with a mixture of respect and caution. "Humanity has shown us something we never expected," he said, his voice quieter than before. "Your strength is not in your numbers, nor your weapons, but in your minds. We have underestimated you, and for that, we apologize. You have earned the right to be here." The other council members nodded in agreement, their faces showing signs of unease, but also acknowledgement. The humans had done it. They had forced the galaxy to recognize their worth. The peace talks were no longer just about finding a solution to the current conflict. They were about shaping the future of the galaxy, and humanity would be a part of that future. David turned to Commander Sarah, his face filled with a mixture of relief and pride. "We did it," he said quietly. Sarah smiled, her expression one of quiet triumph. "No, David," she said softly. "We're just getting started." The council continued to discuss the terms of the peace agreement, but now humanity's voice was heard. They were no longer on the sidelines, no longer ignored. They were a part of the galaxy's future, and they would have a say in shaping it as the talks continued. It became clear that humanity had earned more than just a place at the table. It had earned the respect of the galaxy's most powerful leaders. The council members had come to understand that humanity was not a threat, but an ally, one that could bring something unique to the table. It was a new era, one where humanity would play a significant role in the peace and future of the galaxy. David looked out at the council room once more, a sense of pride swelling within him. The galaxy had finally learned that humanity was more than just a passing force. They were a power in their own right, one that would not be ignored, and as the peace talks moved forward, the galaxy would never forget the lesson humanity had taught them. Underestimate us, and we will prove you wrong.